name's Lisa. I'm going to be making several cards using primarily one stamp set and then some greeting stamps. This particular set is Blooms and Wishes from Stampin' Up. You could use any stamp set that had small elements like several flowers and leaves to do the designs that I have in mind. This particular set's been discontinued. It can't have been discontinued long because I haven't had it that long, maybe a couple of years, and I bought it when it first came out. So, but you can do a lot of things, I think, with this. I've done a few things in the past, and I just came up with a few ideas. One of the things I'm going to do is take the images and create a background using distress relief type of background, or embossed relief I should say, type of background using the Versamark ink embossing and then putting some ink over the top. I'm going to work with graduating colors using lights to darks, and I picked several shades of blue, greens, all the way from very, very light blue to a dark blue. These are all Stampin' Up colors, so I have an extra purpose here. I want to see which of these, if any, have gone dry on me. Mostly these days I'm using Distress Oxides, and if a Stampin' Up ink color has gone dry and I don't have a refill for it, it's going out, because I'm not really going to maintain these since I really prefer the Distress Oxides. But if I have a refill or if it's still a good color, that's just fine. I'm also going to do a card where I use several of the flowers kind of in a band going across, and I thought I would do the some warm colors for this. So I picked, again, several of the Stampin' Up inks, and I'm going to mix some pinks and oranges. We'll see how that looks. I want to use these little designs that to form a wreath for like a Christmas card, and I have some greens to do that with. And I've done some, I was thinking I'd done something like that before, but I don't know if I did or not. But I'm going to create kind of a wreath, and I will need something round to go in the middle of my wreath for Christmas, and I've picked a couple of different Christmassy designs here. Where is their Happy Holidays, or the Merry Christmas one that can go in the middle. And I'll need some other greeting stamps. I have some white cardstock. I might get some ivory out for this. I'm just going to keep it pretty simple. These are going to be like one layer card. Well, they might have a second layer for the greeting, but really flat cards, not a lot of embellishment, just easy to mail kinds of things. Just something to play with this one set, kind of get back into doing a little bit of stamping. So let's start with the embossed relief. One of the inks that's probably going dry in my collection is the Versamark. I did add some ink to the ink pad earlier today, so we'll see if it's working. I hope that it is. I'm going to start with using my embossing buddy to go over this background. And let's get a few of these flowers out here. So I'm just going to pick out a few of the flowers and put them on separate blocks so that I can quickly stamp these, because I don't want my ink to dry before I get to put the embossing powder on. And it's hard to see on the camera, and it's a little bit hard to see in person, but if necessary you can tilt the paper to make sure that you are stamping in a clean space. And you just kind of I worked from the corner up. I do another one of these cards where I stamp from the middle out. But either way, some way to get the designs on the card. They're just scattered around. You can always add another one if you miss one. And I cut out a lot of the running the embossing tool because you don't really see that very well on camera. But when it's done, you can see some shiny designs. We're going to pick a couple of colors. And I made the mistake of using sponges that I had used with Distress Oxides before, and I run into this later on too. That is not something you should do. If the sponges have been used with Distress Oxides, they don't work with regular ink pads because it's transferring the inks. And so I had to work with a different section of the sponge that didn't have that ink color on there. But anyway, I got lots of blues and greens here. And then I'm going to take a paper towel and wipe the blue and green ink off of the flowers. and that will create a background. And I did another one where I did some more mustard, an orange color, and then the pomegranate color on the bottom. I'm taking those warm colors now and doing a design where I stamp several flowers going across the paper in kind of a band, kind of like arrangement. This takes the longest of any of the cards, and this is one stamp pad I had where I don't know how well it's going to do. I need to test it out again, but it's a color in Stampin' Up! Ink that I had in one of the new style ink pads. It really should not have been dried out. Some of these others are very old and they're still stamping. So I don't know. I think they've changed their ink pads yet again, but I haven't bought any of the more recent ones. And now I'm getting a little bit better color there on some of the others. And I'm just going to do the big flowers and then add the smaller flowers. The reason I'm liking the Distress Oxides is because they stamp really well and they do so many different things besides just what a regular ink will do. There are some drawbacks to them in that they take a little bit longer to dry, but that's why I've switched over to those. There's nothing wrong with Stampin' Up! Ink. I just think that the Distress Oxides are more versatile. Now I'm using markers to add a little bit to the center of each flower. And then for my leaves, I just kind of had a spur-of-the-moment decision to do some brown inks for those instead of green and make this more fallish, and I really like how this comes out. And I did, I think, 3 of each leaf in different places. You know, the rules of 3, you really can't go wrong when you're starting to design. And then we're going to add a little bit of ink around the edges. This is an old Distress ink, regular Distress ink, not Distress Oxide. And I finally got my stamping platform from Tim Holtz out because it's appropriate for this next card where I'm starting with a light color. I positioned my white paper so that it stamps up in the upper left-hand corner. And what I'm going to do, you notice I'm not using the magnets to hold the paper down. I'm going to manually adjust the position of the paper so that the stamp is stamping a little bit further down on the paper with each stamp. My head was in the way there, but the next one you'll see, you can see it better. As I go a little bit darker, we are moving the paper up and to the left a little bit more each time to get this image kind of laying on top so it's like a shadow effect. And because I'm going from light to dark, I don't really worry too much about cleaning my stamp as I go. Unless it's a really juicy ink pad, I just don't worry about that. This was a more time-consuming card because of opening and closing all those ink pads, but I think it creates a really pretty effect. I think this is the next to the last color. And the last color is an old color, Midnight Muse, and it's in one of the new ink pads, and it stamps really, really well. So we'll get that color on there. At first I thought I was missing something, like there was a hole in it, but it turns out that's just part of the design of the stamp. It just has an open place in one of the petals. But I used a marker to go around the outside edges to give them a little more definition and make that last flower really stand out. And for the center of it, I added an enamel dot and a greeting. And you'll see that card and all the cards finished off at the end of the video. For this last card, I'm putting a piece of paper that just has some removable adhesive in the middle so that when I put a background on, this wood grain background, I can peel that off and I'll have an area that I can stamp inside of for the middle of my wreath. What I'm going for is to look like a door. So the middle of this will have one of those holiday greetings, and you're going to see that I don't get it on straight. I should have used the Stamp-A-Majig thing for this, and I didn't. I just did it manually. It doesn't work. I get it crooked. I'll do another one off camera, and you'll see the finished product will look a little better than this. But I'm still probably going to send this to somebody at Christmas. It's not that crooked. I send out a lot of Christmas cards, so I can sneak one in there, here and there. All right, we're going around this with a bunch of with these same leaf designs that we used before in brown, but this time in green.
And I remembered I did not do this kind of thing with this set, but a friend had a set with a bunch of little designs like this, and she wanted me to make some cards and see what I could do with them. And I remember doing something similar with her stamps one time, and I don't think I even photographed them when I got done, but it's that same kind of thing. Now I want some ribbon, and what I decided to do, I didn't really have the right kind of ribbon. I'm punching a couple of holes, and I'm using a red cord, and I'm just bringing it around through the holes, and I'm going to tie a bow so it looks like the ribbon is tied right around the wreath there. You have to put your holes far enough apart that you won't rip a hole in the whole thing doing this. But it makes a pretty finish to the cards, a real simple Christmas card.
So here are my 4 completed cards. I actually made an extra one of the Christmas ones. I had one that was a little crooked. I went ahead and did one that was straight. And did a little bit of distressing around the edge. This I think may be my favorite. I really like the warm colors, and then the brown leaves has a nice fall look to it for a birthday card. And then here is another birthday card where we did the embossed resist background, and I did one of those in blue as well. And then I just finished them off really much the same with a greeting and a little bit of ribbon. So it kept them pretty flat. And then this is graduated with the different colors coming down, and then the last one stamped, I outlined it with a marker and put a little enamel dot there in the middle, finished it off with the greeting. There's a little bit of smudging, but we're not going to worry about that too much. And I just, since I trimmed some of the bottom off, I just finished that off with a little designer paper. And those are the 4 cards. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this process of using one stamp set 4 different ways. Thanks again.